We are going to work on graphing from the standard form of an equation. The first thing we need to do is work on finding the zeros. We need to use the quadratic formula in order to do that with this problem. The quadratic formula asks us to identify a, b, and c values. Recall that the a value is the number in front of the x squared. For this problem, a is 3. The b value is the number in front of the x. So for this problem, the b is 12. And the c value is the number that's by itself without any letters. So our c value here is 9. A reminder of what the quadratic function is. It says that the x value of our zeros is equal to opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c divided by 2a. We are going to plug these a, b, and c values into this equation. So for our problem, x equals the opposite of b was 12 plus or minus the square root. B again was 12, so 12 squared minus 4 times a was 3 times c was 9 all over 2 times a, and a was 3 again. We learned how to use our calculator in class to be able to plug this in to get our answers. The first thing that we did on our calculator was we pressed the alpha button followed by the y equals button so that we got that green F1. Now we're picking our first option in order to have a fraction on our calculator. We are going to type into the calculator just as we see it over here. So we need a negative sign, parentheses, 12, end my parentheses. The first time I put this in, I want a plus sign. To get the square root, remember that we need to hit the blue second key first, and then we will be able to get the square root. Parentheses, 12. Then we're going to square that. Minus 4, parentheses 3, parentheses 9. Recall that in order to get out of the top of the fraction and get to the bottom of the fraction, we are going to use our right arrow key. Now that we are in our bottom of our fraction, our denominator, we are going to type 2 parentheses 3. We can hit enter. Our first 0 is at negative 1 comma 0. We don't really want to have to type all this back in just to be able to get a minus sign. In order to get what we had and edit it, we are going to hit the blue second key and then enter. Now I can arrow back through so that I can edit this equation. I'm going to change that plus to a minus and then hit enter. And my second 0 now is at negative 3, 0. So once again, my zeros are negative 1, 0 and negative 3, 0. Now we're going to work on our y-intercept. Recall that the y-intercept happens when the value of x is 0. We've worked with plugging 0 into our equations, and we learned that in the standard form, if I plug 0 into this equation, I will get the c value. I will get 9. So my y-intercept is 0, 9. My axis of symmetry, I am going to grab both of my zeros, negative 1 and negative 3, add them together and divide by 2. I then use my calculator and it solves to get x equals 2. Recall that the axis of symmetry is then written as an x equal equation. My vertex we'll use this value of 2 for the x value. To get the y value, I need to plug in negative 2 for x in this equation over here. So this is what I have. Y equals 3 times negative 2 squared plus 12 times negative 2 plus 9. Entering this into my calculator so that can give me an answer, I get a value of negative 3 for y. So my vertex again is an x value of negative 2, a y value of negative 3. So I now have a vertex of negative 2, comma negative 3. In this problem, I have a minimum because my a value is positive. Recall that the minimum value is the y value of the vertex. So in this case, my minimum value is negative 3. We are now going to use the information that we discovered to make our graph. We're going to start with our zeros. The first 0 that I need to plot is at negative 1, 0. So I'll make a dot right here. The next that I need to plot is at negative 3, 0. So that is right over here. I'm going to go to that y-intercept, 0, 9. I'm going to show my axis of symmetry at x equals negative 2. This line is going to guide me as I draw my parabola, as I draw my U shape onto my graph. This is splitting my shape into 2 equal parts that look like mirror reflections. I'm now going to graph my vertex at negative 2, negative 3, which is right here. Before I draw my U shape, I'm going to go up here to where I plotted my y-intercept. I am going to use this axis of symmetry to get another point over here. Notice that the axis of symmetry is 2 away from the y-axis. So this point is 2 spaces away from the line of reflection. If I go 2 spaces on the other side of that line at the same level, that is where I have another point. I'm now going to work on drawing in my U shape going through the points that I've plotted. And there is my graph.